Hello, everyone. So, I am going to share my thoughts and reflections regarding the Nature Boy trial. Nature Boy, aka Elijio Bishop. He is a person that is not unfamiliar to me. I actually stumbled across Carbon Nation, which is Nature Boy's tribe. Now they're calling it a cult. I stumbled across it back when I was living out in Los Angeles, California. And I, at the time, was an avid follower of Dr. Umar Johnson. So to the point where I would go online and make videos in support of him, just expressing my public admiration of his dedication to revolutionizing the minds of Black people, particularly targeting young Black boys and interrupting the school to prison pipeline. Like, I am obviously in the same field as Dr. Umar Johnson as a clinical psychologist. I live in New York City right now. And so, of course, I align myself with Dr. Umar Johnson, his mission, and in me, vowing for him, right? Like, I was going hard for Dr. Umar Johnson, the mission that he's on. And granted, I'm still in support of the mission, right? But I've definitely kind of taken a step back for a number of reasons. Because some things that happened, and I felt like, okay, self-preservation, let me be careful, right? And through that, I realized that it reminded me of, okay, how political the movement is, right? It's not about who's right, who's wrong, what they're saying is right or what they're saying is wrong. It's about politics. Unless you really thoroughly understand what politics is and how people within politics move, you got to be very careful, especially with the advent of social media. Like, all of our actions, all of our moves, everything really is being observed and documented and recorded, right? So we're all on the grid, essentially. And in me making my videos, and some of my videos went viral, many of them have gone viral, relating to my support of Dr. Umar Johnson, his minion, his people that was attacking him, right? So the Dr. Umar Johnson haters then came to target me, right? And I'm not going to mention any names, but with that targeting, this person began to make, videos on me, and I'm like, oh, hell nah. Right? Like, it's one thing for a person to have their opinion of me. I can care less about people's opinions, but it's another thing when your opinion of me poses a threat to my sense of safety and my survival. So I immediately took to get an attorney. Not that I had to pay for it, but I immediately reached out to an attorney in LA, and I let them know what the situation was, and they shut that shit down. Okay? They shut it down. I don't know what they said to that person who was making those videos about me, but all that shit got shut down, which I felt very much relieved. But in this process, I remember the person that made the videos, this person was like, oh, you like Dr. Umar Johnson. And then she started to name like other people that are in the same vein as Dr. Umar Johnson, right? Other Black leaders in the community. And she was like, oh, why don't you go follow them? And one of the people just so happened to be Nature Boy, right? So I go and look up Nature Boy, and came across his videos, his channel, and my first impression was like, ew, How you gonna compare Dr. Umar Johnson to motherfucking Nature Boy? That was my first reaction because I was just like, ew, this motherfucker look dusty. Like he was not my type at all. Not off of first glance, right? But then I began to pay attention to what he was saying. So beyond the physical external look, I began to hear like what he was saying, and that's what got me intrigued, right? Because he was speaking a message that really no one else was speaking. He had a sizable following, but essentially he was talking about detaching yourself from the system, right? And the system being, America, capitalism, just participating in this whole rat race, right? Detaching yourself away from that, aka Babylon, and going out to be in nature. And through that process, the idea is that you can get in tune with your higher self, right? And you can essentially excel, right? And up the ladder in terms of spirituality and connect with a higher dimension. All things that sound very appealing. So I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. And then it kind of unfolded, kind of developed into me seeing like Nature Boy's paradigm. So apart from or beyond his teachings, right, looking at his world, looking at his life, and it was very attractive, right? So I've been following Nature Boy for a good amount of time, and as I reflect back, I realized like, wow, that's kind of like, I've been following him since the kind of inception of Carbonation, which I didn't really realize that it was like in the beginning budding phases, but I would say since maybe 2016, 2017, that I have been following him. And I actually moved to LA to pursue my doctoral studies in the year of 2016. So till fast forward to 2022, which is essentially the year that someone from his tribe, funny enough, like I'm definitely in contact with her. I support her. I've made videos, sharing my support of her and things that I've actually purchased from her. Like I interact with her online. But she is alleging that he raped her, right? And not only that, but he took to the internet and posted revenge porn, that he held her against her will, right? False imprisonment. So currently, Eligio Bishop, aka Nature Boy, is being held in DeKalb County Jail since his arrest April 2022 for 3 different charges, right? So the first being rape, the second one being false imprisonment, and the third being revenge porn. And I think when I first heard it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is some bullshit. Again, I've been kind of following this group. I would say, definitely a tribe. People are calling it a cult. I think it did evolve into a cult. I don't think it started out as a cult initially because he didn't really have a tight rein on the people involved, right? Like he wasn't, as in control of their decisions and their behaviors. But I think that he's always been definitely organized and it's always been structured. So the nuances of how this group kind of evolved over time, I think is very interesting. And I kind of looking at this trial, because I've been watching the trial and it's been going on since last week. And I've seen like hours and hours of interviews with former members of this group and the witnesses and the alleged victims, and seeing, the examination, the cross-examination. And I just find it interesting how people kind of transform depending on the context they're in, depending on the motive, right, that's driving the whole situation. depending on the pressure that is applied. Like, as a psychologist, I find all of this fascinating to see how people just transform, because you have people that were a part of this group that they held in high regard, and they defended, right, online, publicly, against trolls. People would, take to this group online and post hate comments and all kinds of things. And, these same members that are on the witness stand testifying against the leader, Eligio Bishop, they were the very ones kneeling down at his feet. They're the very people that were subservient to him and giving him all this power, like giving their power up to him. And the prosecution did bring in two expert witnesses, one being this person that proclaims to be an expert in cults and understanding the whole cult dynamic, what drives people to join cults, what drives people to stay throughout whatever happens in the cult, and so forth. And then the other expert witness that the prosecution brought in was this woman. She works for, I believe, the state of Georgia as a domestic violence advocate. And I just find it interesting how they build this story, they build this case to kind of support the alleged victim, the alleged victim. And it's getting really interesting. Let me get some water. Excuse me. But they are building this argument too. So give me a second. All right, I'm back. But they are building this argument with bringing in those two expert witnesses, the domestic violence advocate and the quote unquote cult expert, to um, to try to strengthen the alleged victim's allegations against uh, this proposed cult leader, right? And I find it to be very unnerving, especially for me being a very analytical person and looking at things through an objective lens. It's like this case is so nuanced in a sense that it's not that cut and dry. It's not as simple as, okay, let's bring in some of the witnesses who are now former ex who are former members of this group, who obviously have built up their own animosity against the cult leader or proposed cult leader, who have built up their own motivations that's driving them to be swayed in a certain way, right? Into form of this, their opinions about this person. Now, granted, I wasn't there, right? But in a way, we all were there because everything was recorded for the most part. Of course, not the cameras were running 24/7, but for the most part, they recorded every single thing. Everything was recorded and posted online, right? So most people are familiar, who are following this case, are familiar, very, very familiar with the members who were there. And to kind of build this argument that the alleged victim wasn't allowed to leave and that she was afraid and this and that. Like, everybody knows, who has been following this group knows that's bogus, right? But it's a fine line, though. That's the thing, right? So today it came down to the point where Eligio was like, he wanted to cut ties with his defense attorney because he doesn't feel that his defense attorney is really doing the work. And I can see where he arrived at this conclusion. I can see, because he came off to appear to be strong, especially when it came to his cross-examination of the selection of the jurors in the beginning, right? Especially when it came to certain aspects of interrogating some of the witnesses, right? But there are so many holes, and there are different ways that he could have really showed up. Now, granted, the prosecution already arrested their case, and now it's up to the defense to give their side of the story and to build and to strengthen their case, right? Through bringing in whatever evidence they can bring in, or whatever testimonies they can bring in to discredit the prosecution side, right? And obviously something is transpiring, and we know that a lot of shit happens behind the scenes, even in the beginning, right? When it came to the selection of the jurors, like, we can see that there is bias on behalf of the judge in favor of the prosecution. And we can see that they are not playing fair, right? And we know, just in general, within the justice system, the quote unquote justice system, like, it's really not just, right? It's not for us necessarily, but definitely in general, it doesn't move within the vein of being fair and being just, right? It moves in the vein of what's in it, right? What's in it for them. And this case, like, just Eligio Bishop in of himself being incarcerated, like, he has brought so much attention and so much money. Like, they're talking about, the cost of what this trial costs the state, but no, right? They are profiting. They are profiting off of this man being incarcerated. They are profiting off of this case being drawn out. They are profiting off of him not being free, not being released from jail, and then being sent to prison, right? It's all a profit. It's all a gain. And today, he said that he wanted to cut ties with his defense attorney, to fire him. He kind of motioned for the judge to allow him to seek out another attorney, which you would think that it would be well within his right to do so. But she told him very affirmatively that no, that you cannot do that. Here you have two options, right? You either proceed with this defense attorney, or you don't have a defense attorney. And so there was an issue that came up where someone tested positive in the courtroom. I believe it could have been one of the jurors tested positive for COVID. And he's letting them know, like, listen, I don't even feel comfortable being in this courtroom with a person that is positive. So can we pause this case and then, reconvene after everyone is COVID negative? And she did not. Okay, so apparently my connection is kind of in and out, but basically, let me go back. So basically, he submitted a request so that one, there was two things. One, the first thing being that he wanted to cut ties with his defense attorney because he didn't feel that his defense attorney was properly defending him. And people are questioning, okay, is this even a private attorney or is this a pro bono? Right? Like, what kind of attorney do you have working for you? Is he hired by the state, right, to defend you? And in that case, it would make sense, right? Like, it will make sense where his defense attorney is kind of slacking, where on one hand he's appearing like he got his ducks in a row, right? He playing his cards right, but then deep down under the surface, he has his own hidden agenda, which is in alignment with the prosecution, ultimately the state of Georgia. Then the second thing was that he wanted to kind of pause the case, right, and reconvene after the person who tested positive, or someone who tested positive for COVID, in the court. I believe it's one of the jurors. Elijah Bishop is asking that until that person is negative, right, can they not continue, cannot proceed with the trial? And the judge denied that. And it's just like, but why? Now granted, yeah, people got things to do. I know they want to stick close to the schedule because they got other shit they got to do, right? They have other cases that they have to proceed with. But I think that it should be well within Eligio's right. Those things that he's asking, especially if he don't feel that his attorney is representing him properly. Now, I think it's very clear as to how and why he feels that way. I would definitely like to hear it from him, but yeah, a lot of things just was pretty janky with how the courts here in this case are handling the situation. There are times where we were not able to hear, to see the trial when this is supposed to be a public thing and public broadcast, but they were kind of cutting pieces out, in and out. And you're like, okay, wait, what are y'all doing? Right? So I find that interesting. They were asking people to leave the court house just unjustly, right? It's one thing that if a person is being unruly in court, but no, that wasn't the case. They're just very discriminately picking and choosing what they wanted to do to work on behalf in the favor of the prosecution. So that clearly wasn't right, which I can see that that was making Elijah Bishop like very furious. Now, for me, in terms of side, right? Someone would say, "Oh, whose side are you taking?" Right? Which side are you on? I'm not picking sides. Like, I support Janae, who is the alleged victim. Like, my heart goes out to her. And of course I support Elijah Bishop, right? I support the movement, right? Because I know that he definitely meant well. And I think it has reached a point where this is bigger. That's why I'm looking. This is bigger than Janae. This is bigger than Elijah Bishop. They just were so happened to be the two players involved in this cataclysmic, transformational event that's happening at this point in time. as it really speaks to a greater theme of what's happening in the Black community. And we've seen a pattern of Black conscious leaders rising to effect change. We're not talking about on a small scale, okay? We're not talking about small scale change where, okay, you have a little business, right? And then you making your own money from this business as a business owner. We're talking about a leader, a black man. These are Black men who have risen to a degree of power and influence over the Black community in a positive way. Now, no, of course, no organization is perfect, right? But I'm looking at overall, like they have transformed the minds, getting people to wake up to see that you don't have to go and work and be a part of this system, working a 9 to 5 job, right? And essentially, what is that doing? That's making the white man rich, so to speak, right? And to detach yourself away from America, which is obviously a very toxic country, environmentally speaking, right, with the chemtrails and with the toxins, the poisons that's in the food, that's in everything, the water, right? He was speaking truth to power, speaking knowledge and imparting wisdom onto people. And Black people were biting it. They were digesting it. And I think even through that process, like there was some infiltration, right? And on behalf of the powers that be, because there are people that have been following this group since its inception, not just obviously myself, but some of the expert, one of the expert witnesses say that he, the cult expert, had been following carbonation for a very long time, since the beginning. Right? And all these people, they come on, let's not fucking be misled. These people are connected. The other expert witness works for the state of Georgia. Like, you don't think these motherfuckers connected? Come on. And oh yeah, they just so happen to be white. So that part is what is pulling me in the direction to say that I don't think this is a fair trial. I think that they made it clear, the co-expert witness even made it clear that, oh, he been following him from the beginning. And with that, they had set out an agenda from the beginning. From the beginning of carbonation, they set out an agenda. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning of this video, is that, all of our fucking actions are being recorded. All of our moves, everything. We think that, okay, some things are just because we don't post on social media, right? It's hidden and other people don't know about it. Like, I don't think people really quite understand how there is, how can I put this? I think we have become so disillusioned in our own reality that we are somewhat bit disconnected from the truth. And then you have people such as like Eligio Bishop that are able to see things objectively, and to see, given especially I think his background, growing up in foster care, right, kind of being born right into this world and then being spit out. It's very easy to detach yourself from a world and reality like that when you had a shitty hand from the beginning, right? And so with that, it kind of set this precedent, this path for him to be able to be enlightened, right? Like, I think for people, let's say, who are born to the same system, born into the same country, right? As Eligio Bishop, and kind of had things kind of laid out for them. Things, not that everything went perfect in a person's life, but things kind of fell into place, right? And they are able to find their way in the system and make a living, and not be targeted by the police, and just live like they're more likely to be aligned, right? And it kind of taps into this idea of cognitive dissonance, right? They're more likely to be aligned with those things that fit within their mental constructs, that fit within their paradigm, that fit within what seems to be uh, appropriate, what seems to be right, what seems to be fitting, right? Like, as opposed to people such as people like myself, people who are awakened, people who see life for what it is, right? And have experienced and witnessed and lived the atrocities of what's happening to people. You see things through a different lens, right? So you're speaking from a different perspective. And that's the part that I resonate with, right? I'm not saying that this person did everything right and that he didn't make some missteps, because of course there were many missteps that he made, and I think that kind of is what fed into the dissolution and the destruction of his group, because his own demons, his own generational curses, his own weaknesses, his own unhealed traumas kind of came back to haunt him. But there were many people, like you have, of course, like the thing about organized groups, right? We all are being followed, we all are being watched, but they are definitely under a special eye because of their influence, right? So, of course, the FBI is watching Dr. Umar Johnson. Of course, the FBI has been watching Carbon Nation and Nature Boy, Lehigh Bishop. Of course, Carbon Nation watching the Nuwapians. All of the Black conscious leaders who have a significant influence, right, on the Black community, clearly, right? We're talking about the Black community as a protected, so-called protected political group here in America. Ask yourself, why are we a quote-unquote protected group when we're in reality we're the least protected? But why have we been given that label, a protected class, right? Think about that for a second. Are we protected? All right. We're very monitored. We're under surveillance. We protected, all right. Very closely monitored group, I would say. And why do they care so much? Right? The irony, is that yes, we are targeted, but then they have these reactionary movements, Black Lives Matter. Why do our lives matter so much to the system, to the white power structure? Why? Why does it even matter? Why does it even matter? Why is this case so popular? Why? How did this group become so popular? You think that, oh yes, he is a charismatic person, but on beneath that and above that, I truly believe that certain people, and in this greater context, certain groups are targeted by the power structure, by those who have control, in this case on social media. When you look at people who go viral, when you look at certain things that go viral, right, or certain media influencers who become this sensation, it's not that, oh, this person is beautiful, and most of them not really talented, right? But it's a reason why. Why is this person becoming this sensation? How did they become that sensation, right? You ask yourself that. It's a reason behind the madness. And I think that it takes a critical thinker to be able to see. And this should be a lesson. This should be a lesson learned. And I get it, because some of y'all are watching me for the first time, right? And, I think for some people that I'll say some, not most, but for some people may find it difficult to really follow, to comprehend, because the way I speak, I speak very calculated, right? And so it's like either you get it or you don't get it. And sometimes you have to go into that space. So when I'm speaking in this roundabout way, trust, I'm very much aware of it. And it's for a reason. It's for a reason. And it throws some people off. It throws the right people off, I will put it that way. But if you can hear me, and if you made it to this point, you'll see that, all of this is by design. So again, like I said, this is bigger than Janae. This is bigger than Eligio. This has been a pattern that has existed for hundreds of years when it comes to the white power structure. Giving people a false sense of power, allowing people such as Eligio Bishop to build. Because, like, what happened? Like, when you think of all the things that have happened and how public these people were online, how popular, and you mean to tell me at this very point in time, why now? Why now? That all of a sudden, oh, they want to shut it down. They had plenty of opportunity to shut Carbonation down. Why now? This is all part of their game. And what really got underneath my skin is in listening to one of the quote unquote alleged victims' testimony, Velvet. And part of that, they brought out the sex tapes, right? That she is claiming that he also took to the internet and posted revenge porn. He could have very well done that, right? But I'm just thinking, like, yo, we want to sit up here and zero in. We want to sit up here and zero in on Eligio Bishop, right, and his wrongdoings. But how sick? Think, how sick does the system have to be to operate in a fashion that it's operating in, to think that it's okay to post and to publicize, and you got a jury of 12 people sitting there listening and observing porn in court. Like, who the fuck does that? Porn of an alleged rape victim. Like, think about that, right? And to see the impact of how that affected Velvet as after this is happening, right? And to see how it kind of broke her countenance and broke her spirit, right? And she's broken down and she's not speaking with as much confidence after that piece of quote unquote evidence is introduced. It's just like, how diabolical. Like, I mean, I think the objective clearly is to kind of point fingers and to raise the curtain on an individual person. But to me, like I say, it's always bigger. I see things through a deeper lens and a more systemic lens, like a view, than zeroing down on one person, right? It's easy to, I think, scapegoat and to say, oh, he's an evil person, he's a bad person. I'm just like, what kind of system? Think about it. What kind of system do we have to live in that people who are well educated, people who have family, who have loved ones, people who have children, what kind of fucked up system do we have to exist in that these people will sacrifice, they'll be willing to sacrifice those things, leave and fall in the hands of this type of person in the painting, right? Of Eligio Bishop. Think about that. Like, the system has to be one fucked up system. Like, in the same vein, why are there so many African Americans leaving America and going back to Africa? And then I follow some of them, and when you look at some of their stories, right, and they'll talk about their experiences moving to the continent. And we're talking about going from first world country to third world countries in Africa. Not that, okay, it's all dirt roads or living in huts. No, I'm not saying that, because I know the reality of the multifaceted aspects of Africa. But what I'm saying is, in general, Like, to go from a place as America that has all these affordabilities, all these comfortabilities, these luxuries, right? And technology and running water and AC and heat and, things that people can only imagine having in certain parts of Africa. And then to leave that and to go in those types of conditions, one has to ask themselves, like, what the fuck is going down in America? That a person would travel thousands of miles away from their birthplace and to forfeit these comfortabilities, these luxuries, and go there, right? One may say, okay, well, you're returning back home, right? This is the home of your ancestors, but just thinking about the comfortabilities, we're talking about night and day. It's different. People leaving their families, leaving, like their jobs, their source of resources, right? And having just to go to another place and start a whole new entire life. Like, something got to be really treacherous and really messed up and twisted to the point of a person feeling very unsafe, their livelihoods feeling threatened, that you will flee, right? Some choose to stay and fight and some flee. But I've heard stories of many African Americans who have left America and say, no, man, people are dying. And as a black man, I don't want to have to wake up every day and worry about being killed. Waking up every day and turning on the media and seeing people being killed, right? So in that same vein, you have to ask yourself, what kind of state of a country, of a society, like, where have we evolved or devolved into as a society that people then have to pull themselves out of this world, right? This reality, abandon their families, drop out of college, leave their homes. Some even left their children to go to unfamiliar place, to start a whole new life, and to get up under the control of a proposed cult leader who is doing some harmful things, probably even more harmful than what they experienced where they came from. Some not that much different, right? It's almost as if like they can relate. It's like they've come from that type of place. It seems very familiar to the environment and the world that was created within carbonation. It's the only difference is that who is the face of it? Who is the face of the violence and experience it directly, firsthand, by a person you look up to as a black man. But it's not much different than the attacks, the threat, the abuse that black people, those same members of that group, experience living in quote unquote Babylon. The only difference is that within, and people ask, like the people trying to understand the dynamics of the cult, like how can a person stay? How can, when you look at, okay, the two different worlds, what are the options? Where can you go? You go back to this world, right? The lifestyle that you had in Babylon, which probably wasn't really shit any goddamn way. If it was all of that, you wouldn't be leaving it, right? It ain't like it was all paradise and peaches and cream to what they left. Some, not necessarily. Yeah, some of them were in school, but okay, you got student loans, right? And some still living at home with their mom. It ain't like you got your own house. And by comparison to what you should have when you look at your white counterparts of the same age and where they are, and you look at your projected outcome, right, of where you may end up once you get a college degree, right, as a black person compared to your white counterpart and what they have, it don't even fucking compare. So you're like, well, damn that. Fuck all of that. Fuck the dream, right? Fuck the American dream. Let me go this way. And then you go to this tribe, and then you see, like, well, damn, this, at least the dynamics within, I'm going to just use the word cult, is actually, you have a sense of family. You have people that, you know, are there to support you, like, even more so than your family. So compare that, the attention that they got way more attention in that cult from other members within the cult, from the leader of the cult, from the followers who are online, got all this attention, right? And support, much more by comparison that they were probably getting in their own little network of family and friends in quote unquote Babylon. So compare the two, is like, it really does not compare, right? And yes, they were living in places that one may deem to be quote unquote paradise or optimal uh, conditions to live in, right? Living in the tropics. They were living in places with palm trees and clear water beaches and sun, direct access to the sun, which was one of the things that they taught within the tribe, that the importance of, melanin and having direct access to the sun, right? And living between the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, right? And so, yes, I think, excuse me, the group did afford these people different things. There were many affordabilities there, many uh, things that attracted them and kept them there and kept them coming there, right? And then once you already have skin in the game, like you invested all this time, this energy into the code, yes, you're going to stay. So I say all this to say, it's just like, what is this really a trial of, right? Is this really a test of um, to show, like, is this a trial to showcase the reality? Because I look at things just through a different lens. There's so many different ways that we can look at this, right? We can just zero in on what's on the surface, right? What's on the surface is, a black man from New York built this cult, born in foster care. He had a rough life, right? So then he wanted to create his own family. He created his cult, attracted people came, then he took advantage of them, did them wrong, and boom, right? He was power hungry, right? One can look at it through that lens, but I think it's a different lens to look at it through. And I'm, like I said, looking at this situation through a systemic lens, a structural lens. Is clear that this is just only one. This is representation of one of many that was, and one of many that will come. So why not get to the root of the problem, to address what is it about this society that we live in? What is it about this country that makes people want to separate and detach away? People are looking at this, the psychology of it in terms of the individual psychology, like in the person's mind. What is it about a person's mind? Or the mind of a cult leader, the mind of the members who would be attracted to this type of group, right? No, what is it about the mind of our system and our society? Let's look at that mind, that makeup. Because this society is not fucking peaches and cream. And many of them were already living harsh lives too. Yeah, some may say, I was in college and, I was in my first year, second year. But then some were, which they ain't even got to those testimonies, some of them were coming from the streets. Former gang members, former prostitutes. What do you say about that? What opportunities did they have? None. in America, right? So what do you make of this? I think we already know the outcome. And there was a point where I was leaning more so towards them, the prosecution. When I say them, the prosecution, really losing the case, like not having enough evidence or strong evidence. They got plenty of evidence, but how strong is it? How convincing is it that the jurors will buy into it? And like I said, it's about politics and seeing that, oh, well, seriously, somebody get test positive for COVID, and throughout the case, you can hear motherfuckers coughing the whole time, coughing. It's just like, God damn, who the hell's sick in that motherfucker? You know, coughing so loud to the point where you can't even hear parts of the goddamn testimonies. It's like, what is going on? But they always throw little monkey wrenches in the whole thing, right? To set things off so that they maintain control. And it's a perceived level of justice. It's perceived, it's a false sense of justice within the justice system to make him feel like from the jump, oh, okay, we're going to do a fair selection, and going through each juror thoroughly. I'm like, wow, they pretty thorough, right? Trying to weigh out who would be fit, who's not fit based on their past and experience and exposure, right? Because how their experiences could sway, their opinion on the evidence that's presented in court based on whether or not they themselves have been raped, or they know someone who has been raped, or know someone who has been wrongly accused of rape, and so forth, right? Like the different elements of the trial, the case, were brought forth in determining who would make a good fit to be on the jury. So in doing that thorough process, it made it seem like, okay, well, they are thorough, which means that they are meticulous and they're fair and they're careful to kind of comb through all the fine details objectively. But absolutely no. Absolutely no. You already know, like, it's very clear that everyone know about bias, right? We all have biases. The judge is white, a white woman. She clearly has her own biases, whether conscious or unconscious, of black people in general, let alone black men. Hello? And then the prosecution attorney is fucking white, a white male. Like, come on, yo. He already going in knew that the cards were stacked against him. What I do like about Eligio Bishop, and what I can resonate with, as they say, you cannot manipulate a manipulator, right? And it's just something about like seeing other masterminds, because I myself am a mastermind, but just seeing that he is quarterbacking this whole shit. And for him to publicly say, you know what, I don't want my attorney. This black man who perceivably has been standing by this man's side, Eligio Bishop's side, the entire time, and going up there vouching, I'm talking about fighting. He put in work now, especially when the prosecution had to present their evidence, and he going up there cross-examining everyone that came to the stand, and we're talking about hours and hours and hours of time up there that this defense attorney spent in court, not even to mention all the research he had to do, right? Like, of course, the woman said this is his job, he's supposed to do. But for him to even agree to do this case, and then this man turn on him and say, you know what, I don't want him representing me because he's losing hope and losing faith. Yes. But those who have been following Eligio, such as myself, and will study people, study human behavior, who has studied, Like, I've definitely studied Eligio Bishop it's clear, yes, that I wasn't surprised when he said that. Some people are like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Why does he want to fire his attorney midway through the whole trial? But granted, they denied. The judge said, no, that ain't happening. You can't do that, which I believe he can. Anything is possible, right? Especially if you push it hard enough. But for Eligio, like, no, like his personality is such that what we saw today, right, in the trial, it's like, I knew it was coming. And the fact that the table's about to turn and now it's up to the defense to prove their case, it's no surprise that the fire is up under his ass. Yes, but I think it's just part of his I think it's part of his character. I think it's part of his personality to to manipulate, clearly, like to manipulate a situation any way he can. And now that the ball is in his court, it's like he's playing this mind game. I don't think people quite really understand it. Like, people don't really see like how he moves, but those who have really truly been watching this tribe, Carbon Nation, Eligio Bishop, and that have studied him know that it was bound to happen. And he does that. Like, he gets up into people's minds, and he has a room and the authority and space to do that. How? Number one, like I said, he was born into this world with nothing. We're talking about a man who never really got a chance to meet his mother and father, born into foster care, raised in foster care, essentially. Yes, he was born to his biological parents, but they died when he was very, very young. I think he died like when he was like 2 years old. Like, so he was placed in foster care. Family ain't even want to take care of his ass, right? And that question came up, like, where was his biological family? Not in court, but in some peripheral discussion on blogs related to the case. Someone said, oh, where was his family? Like, you mean to tell me he had a biological family? Aunts, uncles that want to take him in, given that he lost both of his parents, and like, he already seen and done the worst of the worst, right? Had to take to pornography himself to make a living, to survive, to make ends meet, right? Engaging in gay porn, doing whatever he need to do. And anybody know about that life, just doing what you got to do to try to survive. Like, that's how people turn to prostitution, whatever, selling drugs, like the most dehumanizing acts, the most shameful things that a person can think of. Like, people live that life in the streets. What is jail? What is prison? It's nothing, right? He's been in jail as a teenager, and I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, juvenile really don't count as going, excuse me, as going to prison," but essentially it is prison. Have you ever been in a juvenile prison? And juvenile being ages from 15 to, I think, 25. I worked in the juvenile prison in California. It is very much prison. I remember, like, orientation, my the department head of psychology at the prison where I worked in California took all of the interns on a tour. We took us on a tour, right, as part of our orientation. And part of that tour, we went inside, the cell block. And I walked in. He walked in, but when I walked in, like, he shut the door. And I was like, hold on, don't do that shit. But I kind of got claustrophobic seeing, like, the experience of being in a fucking prison cell. And shit is small as fuck. And I was just like, could you imagine someone closing the door and you can never, like, that's it for you. You're not coming out, right? Or you don't know when you're coming out, or you just locked up indefinitely. Could you imagine that? Like, I'm scared knowing that I'm just, like, I know that he was playing, but for a moment I almost forgot. Like, wait a minute. It felt very real when my supervisor kind of did that joke on me, right? And closed the door. Granted, I can push it open, right? But still, it's just like, I got a taste of what it was like, and I couldn't imagine. But I worked there. And it's no place anybody want to go and even in juvenile, is modeled after adult prisons. The only difference is the age group of the people there, right? But the design of it it's the same. The rules are the same. They on lockdown for 23 hours out the fucking day. They're not just hanging out, doing whatever they want to do. It's not like that. So, yeah, like what is what is jail to a person who don't have no family, who never felt love, right? Like what is that to them? If anything, a lot of people who grew up in that type of environment without like a consistent, stable family, and to be able to create those bonds with a biological mother, right? And biological father, they don't know what is bonding, right? Like they never really experienced that, right? We think of those first 5 years that are so critical to our development, our socio-emotional, psychological, and physical development as children. A lot of that was disrupted, right? Not being able to achieve those things that are very critical, important to a person's healthy development. He didn't get that growing up from birth through his young adult, right? And even up until now, like his whole uh, life development, life course has been nothing but normal, like nothing but abnormal, I meant to say, right? Like, so he's used to this. So I think, if anything, what does that mean? What does it mean for him to be in prison? It's nothing. This is a cakewalk for him. Now, granted, yeah, I say like nobody want to go to jail, right? So yeah, there is a part of a person who, when they are processed, when they're booked, and they're behind bars and not knowing a lot of things, right? A lot of things are just unknown. Yeah, as a human being, your instincts are going to start to kick in, and you are going to become fearful and worried, concerned, and you may lose hope, and you may become depressed, and despondent, and just hopeless, right? Like those natural human instincts and emotions will start to kick in as you're going through this whole process of having your freedom taken away, your livelihood taken away. But it's not something that is unfamiliar to Eligio Bishop, is what I'm saying, given what he's been through in his life, right? Like think about his mind as a little boy, and his experience and his worldview, not knowing his biological mother and father, right? So his freedom, his livelihood was taken away from him when he was a little child. So revisiting that as an adult, facing what he's facing now, which when they started the whole trial, they gave him an opportunity to back out, to say, take this plea, go ahead and just do the 30 years, we're going to let you go, right? And reduce the charge to, I think, aggravated assault as opposed to rape, where he will be required to do minimum, like life. You're going to get life. They said life without parole, and having to register as a sex offender, right? He said, hell no. He thought about that shit though deeply with his attorney. He took some time out and think about it, but then he's like, nah. He came back to court and said, nah, right? But that was already put on the table from the jump, right? So looking at what he's facing, it's just like, it's worth the fight. What do I have to lose at this point? Given his life, and he has lived life. So even if, let's say, symbolically speaking, his life is coming to an end, where he's facing life in prison without the possibility of parole, it's like he's lived life. And I think that's the reason why he went so hard, because I think he sensed that, and he actually predicted his demise. He said numerous times, when he was a free man, right, leading this nation of Black people, he said, oh, you're going to betray me to the very people, some of the very people that were up there testifying against him, women and men. He said, you're going to betray me. he said, about being in prison and those who are in jail deserve to be in jail. So it's like he kind of predicted his own outcome, his own demise. And you can see how his behavior was aligned with what he was experiencing internally and knowing what was about to come. So I think in retrospect, for him, it's a win-win situation because he fulfilled the mission. He looking at himself as he is the Messiah, the messenger of Christ, the second coming, quote unquote, of Christ, right? A revolutionary, conscious, black conscious leader, right? Effecting everlasting change within the black community, making a impact on the black community. I think that for him, he can find solace in knowing, listen, I've achieved my mission. And you have to understand, this is a person that has a very strong will and a very strong mind. For him to be able to amass the following that he has amassed over the years, and the extent of his power and what he was able to do. All right, just go look at the videos. How he was able to get people, to men and women, to wash his feet, to bow down, to believe that he is the Messiah, to believe that he is God. Like, he's done it, right? So what more else is there for him to achieve in life, to do? Right? He's lived in a multitude of different countries, right? Some that people will never be able to, a reality that some people will never be able to experience, but he's done that. He's had children. He's had multiple wives. Like, he's lived all that kind of glorious life that many people aspire, can only dream of having. So I think for him, and kind of weighing out the reality of the situation, like, will he actually, let's say, he lose a case and he is sentenced to life without parole. The question is that really going to happen, right? Like, is he actually going to do the time? What would that time look like for him to be incarcerated? We know that Dr. Malachi York, he's been in prison, and he definitely led a whole nation. He built this, black nation of believers, similar to obviously what we're seeing now with Nature Boy. Nature Boy kind of modeled his tribe after the Nuwaubians, which was led by Dr. Malachi Z. York. So it's like, this is nothing new under the sun. In fact, I definitely was impressed by what Elijah Bishop had amassed, and his level of influence. But when I began to reference and to research the Nuwaubian nation and what they built, and I'm trying to recall, was it in Georgia? Wait a minute. The irony, I think it was in Georgia, same state. So you clearly, the state ain't new at this either. They know what the fuck they doing because they've been there, done that when it comes to the prosecution side. But it's just like, I believe it was in Georgia where they kind of built a little Africa, so to speak, with pyramids. Like, they had that shit lit up down there, man. And it was just, oh my gosh, very immaculate design of what these black people were able to produce, to create on the land that they had. They purchased this land, many acres of land. They got all these pyramids set up, and they kind of built their own civilization, right? And it was deemed to be a cult, and they came in and busted Malachi Z. York on charges of I think it was like child molestation, child rape, saying that he was doing some inappropriate things with people who were considered to be minors, at the time. And all that is still up for speculation, right? But yeah, it seemed like the parallel between these two tribes, right? And what happened back then. I think back then, was this back in the 80s? Like, this is when I was growing up, right? And then fast forward, now we're in 2024, right? Seeing like the parallel, the similarities in what was done then, right? So it's like history kind of repeats itself, and there will be another, right? There'll be another tribe, and I think when people are radical in their thought and radical in their behavior, such as Dr. Malachi Z. York and Eligio Bishop, and these are very wise people. Like Eligio Bishop ain't dumb by a long shot, like long shot. He's very intelligent, highly intelligent. Man, they know what they're getting themselves into. And he's faced police many a times, right? And being deported from different countries that they've went to and being raided by the police in different countries, right? So like, and there was a video, and I want to say, was it when they were in Nicaragua, where they were detained and he stood his ground against the police there. So to the point where they were beaten badly. So for him to suffer and to put himself up as a sacrifice to be beaten by police and to resist, right? Because I think they were essentially telling them, get off the van, exit the van, get out, right? And they were resisting and they were like, no, we don't have to do that, right? Because in his mind, he's like, we don't have to follow anyone's law. You know, we are free people and we are governed by ourselves. If anything, you know, that's the kind of paradigm, what he was thinking. And so I think it's interesting, like I said, is looking at people's responses to the trial, because it shows, like, you know, their frame of reference, their conditioning. We're all conditioned, right? So people want to point fingers at this particular quote unquote cult and how some of the members have been brainwashed, and how could they, you know, be persuaded to do this and do that. But I'm like, yo, y'all don't realize how brainwashed we all are, right? This just goes to show you the delicacy of the human mind, which I am not oblivious to, right? Like, I think people, it's easy, I think, like to throw stones and to point fingers and to judge another person, but it's just like, you should really be looking at yourself in the mirror, because if they are brainwashed, then what are we? Just because, okay, we're not in a quote unquote cult that is called carbonation, right? And living in that environment and that they're by their rules or their lifestyle, doesn't mean that we ourselves outside of that are not brainwashed and conditioned. We're all a part of a code. I mean, just think about it, right? The very things that they're pointing out on the witness stand and they're being called into question, we can all relate. I think that's what makes it so sensational, because we all see pieces of ourselves in every single person who has been called to the witness stand, who is testifying against Eligio. Like, yo, that's us. We're all brainwashed. We're all, and ask yourself, okay, are you really free? And what does freedom look like? All right. I feel like, if anything, these types of situation, right? This trial, it should not be about, oh, look at this black man with dreads, and you know, he was polygamous and multiple wives, like focusing on the wrong shit. It should allow you to really take a self-reflection, to look at yourself and where do you stand with respect to the very things that you are criticizing and evaluating and looking at under a microscope with regard to another human being. What about your own life? Are you free as an individual? Are you brainwashed? These are the questions that we should be asking ourselves. So a person want to ask me, what is my thought? What is my opinion? What is my reaction to this trial, this case? Here it is. Many of y'all wake up every single day and go to a job that you hate, making how much an hour? But you don't think that you're brainwashed. Many black women spend how much money on weaves and perms? And how much do black people spend on name brands, making a white person rich just to feel validated, feel accepted, feel valued, feel like you are somebody? In order to be somebody, you have to first of all sacrifice many hours to get the money. Think about what does it take to get that amount of money to be able to afford certain brands that people are striving and breaking their neck to get, right? All for what? What does it all mean in the end anyway? So for me, like I say, certain aspects of this group, right, Carbonation, the message, that's what I resonate with. And I've had conversations with Eligio Bishop, right? And I've spoken to him from the perspective of being a psychologist and imparting my understanding and knowledge onto him at different points when he was running the code. And I remember because when I would step in and have these interactions with him, when I noticed that he was struggling in certain areas, I felt like, okay, he going through it, right? And certain things that are happening within his group really don't need to happen, because granted, yes, he is a mastermind, but he's a human being, right? So he has his own weaknesses, and he is a product of the crack era, where his parents are on crack and just unfit, right, to care for him. And so, yes, that kind of positions him in a place where, he has his own demons. He has his own insecurities, a lot of insecurities. And so he became the subject of the very people. Like, he became like kind of like his own victim in a way, in his own situation. Like, he had been victimized himself and kind of backed up against the wall many a times. And I remember, like, I reached out to him, and I remember this piece of advice I gave him. I was like, yo, you need to do some evaluations on the motherfuckers that's coming there, right? Like, you need to put them through some tests. They should just be able to come up in your shit. All right, this is your space. This is your intimate space. And you're allowing anybody to come up in there? Like, no, they should have to go through some hoops and undergo some psychological evaluations to see, number one, are they even psychologically sound and fit to be able to withgo this. It's just like the military. The military, yes, it's been said, though, they accept anybody, right? So, you on your last resort, then go to the military because they take anybody. But no, you got to go through some shit, rigor, to prove yourself qualified to be able to move forward with the duties that you're assigned to in the military. They make them go through many tests, and I was just comparing what Eligio was building to that, to say, like, oh, you need to come on, develop something as a safeguard, right? So it gives you a sense of security to know, like, okay, at least I put these people through this, right? And I can know that they're tried and true, But yeah, I just think overall it's interesting, and I think that, like I said, it's not the first, it won't be the last tribe or, cult or Black-centered movement that amasses such of a following that's so dedicated and so aligned and so committed to one mission and one purpose. And that they were. Like, there was one time, they were solid, all on one accord, all having the same mind, one self. And they were strong, but they got broken up because it's easy to kind of get broken up when you're on your public display, right? So with being public on social media, going live, they went live damn near every day, right? You're up for public scrutiny, right? And then people target, your message, and people have the ability to make their own videos in response to videos you made. So it kind of creates this space for the individual members to be influenced by the outside. And I get that, why he wanted to isolate, wanted to keep them separate from quote unquote Babylon or any influence of outside. Is really impossible to do that, right? When you're living on social media. And these people, yeah, they all have phones, and some of them are testifying and say, oh yeah, we had phones, but it's really controlled by Leah Bishop, where we didn't have actual cellular access or phone access, but we had like Wi-Fi, and if it was only we were only able to use our phones where we had Wi-Fi connection, right? But they still had opportunities to connect on an individual level. Excuse me. Oh, why my voice? To the outside world. They still had these opportunities to connect to the outside world individually and be influenced. And that's exactly what happened. And that's how the tribe would get broken up. And that's how certain members were pulled away, quote unquote, back into Babylon and left the cult, because there were people like these blog YouTube channels, right, that would be very much connected to certain members in their ear, saying this, saying that, and they got pulled away. And not only that, they were supporting them, right? And that, like I said, I look at these from a systemic perspective and seeing that what is their agenda, right? Now, one may say, oh, well, no, they care about the women there. They want to save them. They don't want to see them, that can be one thing, right? But I think, like, you look at who is doing it, right? Who's behind the main influencer channel that caused a lot of division within that group. This is a woman who's a lesbian. She don't even like men, number one. You gotta think, okay, well, what has been her story, right? What has been her past? There was a point where she wasn't even showing her face. And it got to a point where then eventually she, revealed who she was and her name, because it was no longer a secret. But it's just like, one has to question that. That's what I question, people's motives. Like, what is really going on? And why is your mission to target this particular thing? Who is feeding into you, right? What puppet master is driving these people who feel so driven to target and disrupt what Alicia Bishop was building, right? What is it? Who is driving them? What are they gaining? These are questions that should be asked that aren't being asked by the defense. And I feel like this is where Elia Bishop is becoming frustrated, because the defense attorney ain't really too well versed in what's going on. Like, he asking some good questions in his cross-examination, but he not asking the questions that he needs to ask related to the whole big picture of things, right? And I'm sure that's when Leo was in his ear telling him certain things, but Leo is, I think, way more astute, I would say. Now, granted, yes, the defense attorney is there. He serves his purpose, and he's knowledgeable in his specialty area and studying certain aspects of the law. So that's where he comes in, so he could be able to assert, what is right and what the extent that Elia Bishop could operate within the law, right? And to be able to challenge some of the witness testimonies as it pertains to the law. But I think there are certain parts that are missing, right? So for the prosecution to get this quote unquote co-expert, like, it's other people, I think, that could serve as key players on the defense side too. And looking at the grand scheme of things and seeing that, hold on now, these victims ain't so-called all the way victims. and seeing how, they definitely participated and had a sense of autonomy over their own decisions and a significant portion. And they all could have left when they wanted to leave. So nobody was held there, right? Don't try to pull this, oh, we were brainwashed and we couldn't leave and all of this crap. Because it wasn't that level of brainwashing. It was a level of complicit behavior that they wanted, right? But they all knew, and they were all came to a point where they had to determine, okay, should I stay? Should I leave? It wasn't to the extent of, oh, he had such extreme power over them that there's nothing they could have done about it. There's nothing they could have done in that situation. Like, they were completely helpless, and that is definitely, absolutely not the case. Right? So one may ask, okay, what do I want to see happen? I think it's a win-win situation for Elijah Bishop either way it goes, right? And anyone can say it's a lose-lose situation either way it goes too. But I say it's a win-win situation in the sense that if he is released, right, and the charges are dropped, right, and they're not able to sustain a decent evidence to prove that these things actually happen, right? The evidence is completely weak and the case gets thrown out and he's released. I think that he's still going to have to face the repercussions, right, of the situation, right? And now it's been publicized that, oh, he's a cult leader, he's a rapist. So one may ask, is he safer actually in prison now? Because these motherfuckers already tainted his image. And it's like, this is the whole prime MO of these white racist motherfuckers. What they do to destroy any black leader, what they do, number one, they taint your motherfucking image, yo. Which it makes it easier for them to destroy the body. They destroy you. They'll destroy and break your ass down, destroy your image, and they're destroying this man's image. And not only his image, but he's a reflection of the black community. So any other black leader, current or potential, be warned, right? Beware, because it is a reflection. It's just like, these what y'all motherfuckers doing, these what y'all black leaders is doing. It's tainting the image of black leaders altogether. Oh, they just rapists. Oh, they just child molesters, right? Historically. And because they can assassinate your character, it makes it so much easier for them after they've done that to assassinate you. So they can let them go. And people may say, oh, especially the supporters or the followers of Carbon Nation, oh, it's a win. It's a win-win. Right? We won. Yay, he's free. 3 is free. 3 God is free. But then is he really? He's definitely going to be a huge target. And people are saying, oh, well, if he lose a case and he is sentenced, they going to get his ass because all the inmates know, he a rapist. Like, I feel he got more protection in there than do out on the outside now. Look at his name. He got to go and create a whole new identity because he got it coming for him. And one of the alleged victims, Velvet, got up on the fucking stand and is talking about when she was cross-examined by his defense attorney, where he asked, you have a new child by Solar, Elijah Bishop's right-hand man. Did you just have a baby? And she was like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, when was the baby conceived? And she was like, you really want me to answer that? He was like, when was the baby born? And she was being defensive, right? Surrounding that question, saying, oh, well, her life is in danger, blah, 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 blah. But come on, you knew what you getting yourself into from the beginning. Like, anybody who agrees to testify in court, come on, if you don't know how risky that shit is, attorneys leave out of court cases, their lives are threatened. Everybody's life is on the fucking line. That's the reason why I can get why the defense attorney kind of brushed right over that response that Velvet gave, because it's just like, are you kidding me? My life is fucking on the line. Here I am defending a goddamn alleged rapist. Hello. And then all this evidence is out, information is out about what happened within the cult. Set aside the charges of what he's there for. We ain't even talking about that, because that is still up for debate if that even happened. Now we talking about what we know happened, what has been recorded, what's posted online. People knowing all these things happen within this tribe, Carbon Nation, and here I am defending this shit publicly, right? So he now the defense attorney has become even more famous, and you think his life ain't at risk. And he started the case by saying, "Listen, I got a whole wife and kids, and I'm a church man." Let me get some water. So it goes to show, like, come on, like, what the fuck, you know? Everybody's life is in danger. Even people who are blogging about this shit. You know, anybody can get it, you know? A lot of people's lives are on the line here. So I'm about to go ahead and wrap this video up, but that's my take on this Nature Boy trial. And I think that, yeah, we can look at it through a microscopic lens, through this pointing the finger and wanting to scapegoat one person, you know, looking at things narrow-mindedly, or we can look at the big picture, right? And to see that there has always been an agenda against the Black community. And to see that this case is just only a reflection of what the agenda has always been anyway. The outcome of this case, right? And even the process, even all the things that have occurred within this cult, to this cult and this tribe, it's clear that it was all a game plan anyway. It's all part of the game plan. And who they think they fooling, y'all? And they just showing y'all, like, you got an idea. Same thing with that room. I made videos about this shit with that room. Oh, you think your Black ass gonna build a school? Oh, you think you gonna save these little Black boys, huh? Y'all should see my face. You think you gonna become the savior for the Black community? We gonna show you who gonna be the savior. They then knock that shit down. We're gonna show you who's in charge, who running shit. We're gonna let you do what you do. The good that you think you do, we're gonna let you do that. And even the bad, we're gonna let you fuck up, some people in the Black. We're gonna let you do all of that. Then at the end of the day, we're gonna show you who really running things and who got the final say. And that's where we at right now. So it's all fine and dandy until people really see the debauchery, how diabolical and how evil this world is. And when you really see how evil it is, and I'm sure some of the witnesses, when they up there and they realize this so-called quote-unquote due process of the court, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, can you imagine being a victim, but up there being questioned like you committed murder and like you did something very heinous? You're like, what kind of process is this? Where do you do that at? Why are I being treated like they have to go, like, it's like reliving the trauma all over again and having to go through that shit? That would make you, I would think that would make any victim, so-called alleged victim, align. They call it Stockholm syndrome. More, not even Stockholm syndrome, but more so aligned with the trauma of the reason why your ass died in the first place. Right? Because at least that's more familiar. Right? At least Nature Boy is familiar to the victims. right? And you see, okay, well, damn, the court don't give a fuck about my ass either. For them to even be putting me through this shit. When you listen to their testimonies and all of the shit they had to go through, even at the hands of prosecution to ask them questions, just like, well, goddamn, maybe it's better to not even speak up and say nothing. You know what I'm saying? And then, damn, maybe they might feel like they align with a nature boy in that situation. I'm like, well, damn, maybe I should just fucking not say nothing. Maybe maybe it wasn't so bad after all. Like, damn. Maybe I feel bad for him. Because you look at it, does it really, the cost outweigh the benefit? All the shit. She even said, my life is in danger. Yeah, her life was in danger when she was in a cult, but not like this. Not the shit she going through now, where she don't even want to say the birth date of her damn baby, her new baby, and she's out of the cult. When she was able to say Eliana's her first child that she had with Nature Boy. She was able to say when that baby was born. Life in the cult versus life outside the cult, which is more dangerous? Shit, right now what she's going through is hell a lot more dangerous and threatening to her sense of safety than what she went through. So people begin to make those comparisons subconsciously in their mind, like, damn, maybe he's so bad after all. That's that cognitive dissonance kicking in. Maybe he's so bad after all. Because it's a lot. I can just only imagine. I gotta go and wrap this video up. You guys feel free to share your comments below. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, I'm sure you have some opposing perspectives. Feel free to drop it below respectfully. And I may come back and do a part 2. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up.